Hi friends, my name is mgalvez and I'm here to give you your update on the housing market trends so that you are all caught up and up to date and can make an informed decision. Now, with that said, I'm going to be giving you a lot of data today, so try not to get overwhelmed. And at the end, I'm going to give you some tips so that you can better prepare yourself. So let's go ahead and dive in. For those that are thinking of buying, you may want to hold on for a few more months because as inventory is increasing, you're going to start seeing prices decrease further. Now, for those that are thinking of selling, you may want to do it sooner rather than later because as I said, prices are decreasing, which means the longer you wait, the less and less equity your home is going to have. Now, for those who have missed a payment or are actively in foreclosure, feel free to reach out to me. I can go over all of the options that you have available to you and create a strategic plan that is appropriate to your specific situation. Now, as we know, home prices are very, very high, making it very difficult for the average consumer to afford a home. However, inventory is increasing, and inventory is the amount of homes that are available in the market. And as more and more sellers try to go into the market, this is going to cause these group of sellers to start competing against each other, which is going to eventually drive prices down. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about contracts. 17.7% of Angelenos have backed out of contracts, and contracts are that binding agreement between a buyer and a seller for the transfer of title. So these homes that would have normally been removed from the market are still in the market, in addition to more and more sellers trying to jump into the market, which is causing inventory to increase. And again, as more and more inventory increases, we're going to start seeing prices start to dip. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about inflation. Inflation is currently 9.1%. This is the average price of consumer items. Take, for example, something that would have cost you $20 before, now it costs you $33. And the government is trying to combat inflation in two different ways. One, by increasing interest rates, and two, by monetary tightening policy. So the increase of interest rate is drastic. 6 months ago, it was at 3%. Now it's at 5.69%, which is a big difference because now people that are buying homes at these current rates are paying a lot more for the monthly mortgage rate as compared to 6 months ago. And as interests continue to increase, well, it's going to cause those monthly mortgage payments to be more and more higher. Now, it's very important to understand that the way the government works. So you basically have these banks, which is where you pretty much do your basic banking at, right? So these banks lend out loans to consumers, and in return, they get these notes. Now, as they continue lending out loans, their funding becomes less and less and less. Now, what they do is they sell these notes to the secondary market, which is the government, and the government purchases these mortgage-backed securities and they fund these banks so that they can continue lending out more and more loans to the average consumer. However, the government has said no longer are we going to be doing that. We're going to create this monetary tightening policy, which means that they're no longer buying these mortgage-backed securities, which means that these banks have less and less funds, which means that they have to be very particular into who they decide to lend a loan to. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about unemployment. Unemployment is still pretty low, which means a lot of people are working. It's at 3.6%. However, America has recently announced many, many layoffs coming soon, predominantly in the tech industry. And you may be thinking, well, how does this apply to me? I'm not in the tech industry. Well, think again, because out of every one tech job, 5 other service jobs are created. And this is not to say that other industries are not going to be affected, because as we saw in last recession, construction workers and restaurant workers were greatly, greatly affected. Now, how were they affected? Well, construction workers were unable to complete their jobs or even had to cancel their projects because there was no funding to continue completing these projects. As for restaurant workers, many people opted out of eating out and instead decided to buy groceries and cook at home in efforts to try to save some type of money. Now, this brings me back to savings. What happens when there's no layoffs? Well, people dive into their savings account. However, the average American only has 5.4% of their income into saving. This is astonishingly low. And if they have no savings and they have no job, what do they resort to? Well, most resort to debt. And however, majority of Americans are in what is called a debt crisis. And this is not just a Los Angeles County issue, but it's a worldwide issue. Many countries they're experiencing this debt crisis where their income is pretend this is the amount of income that they make, and their debt is so high that it's eating up majority of their income, which is called the debt to income ratio. Now, banks, when you get a home loan, they like to see a debt to income ratio of 31% or lower. However, majority of the loans that were given out were actually with a debt to income ratio of 43% or higher, which means that majority of the loans that were given out to people that were already in a very tight situation when it comes to money. And if they get laid off, well, it's going to put them in a very difficult predicament. And many of them may even lose their homes, and it's only going to fuel the amount of homes that are actively in foreclosure. So what can you do to better prepare yourself? Well, you can do a lot of things. One is pay off your debt, credit cards, any kind of personal loans that you may have. Two is don't buy, it's not the time to be buying appliances, big appliances. This means like TVs, furniture, vehicles, things in that nature. Third is save, 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 save. I cannot stress this enough. During a recession, it's very difficult to get a loan or any type of credit. And saving is going to be crucial during a recession, because if a layoff does occur, you'll at least have this cushion to fall into. And when the market dips and prices start to decrease, well, you'll at least be able to take advantage of this market and put yourself in the position that you want to be in. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I am more than happy to answer them.